I'm Carmen Wild, and this is Business Without Barriers, the show proving we can become barriers and create enriching futures when we bring humanity back to business. Our guest today is Louis Carstens, and he is masterful at conquering the barriers he faces not only in the boardroom, but on the highest peaks in the world. Louis is a high-altitude mountaineer who has climbed the 7 summits, the highest mountain on each continent, as well as 4 of the 14 mountains in the world higher than 8,000 meters, some of those being South African first ascents. When he summited Mount Everest on 23 May 2010, he became only the 293rd climber in the world ever to complete the 7 summits. His climbs have been featured in various journals and on TV. He's also the vice president of Tiger of the Snows, an American not-for-profit that facilitates education for children of mountain workers in Nepal and Tanzania. Louis has 5 degrees. 3 of those are cum laude, and is currently the Chief Strategy Officer for Capricorn Group Limited and is the best 8,000-meter climber in South Africa. He loves fast bikes, was a licensed skydiver and advanced plus scuba diver, and he has twin boys. Louis constantly pushes himself to his edge and succeeds. Yet, he'll tell you he's the average Joe next door, which to my mind makes him even more exceptional. Louis, it's an absolute privilege to have you on the show today. Welcome.
It's my privilege to be on the show, Carmen. I look forward to this. Thank you very much. Thank you for that introduction. My kids will tell you it's been all over the top, and the average Joe comes from my kids. So that's wonderful to be. I look forward to today. Thank you very much for hosting me. I appreciate that. It's
a pleasure. So you like pushing the limits, Louis. What's it like pushing speed limits on your Ducati?
Well, I hope there's nobody from a traffic department listening in, but I really enjoy speed. I like speed. I like going to the track when I have time and do some track days. Always liked speed. Getting a lot of traffic fines aren't helping me with my need for speed. But I like speed. For me, it's a sense of freedom, Carmen. It's a sense of freedom when I'm on a bike and I'm, pushing the limits. Also on my motorbikes, it's like climbing mountains, pushing the limits. For me, pushing the limits and pushing boundaries is for me freedom. It comes with a sense of duty and responsibility. I'm not reckless ever, but I enjoy freedom of my motorbike. I enjoy the freedom of the mountains and the waters and the seas.
That's such a nice, you're equating speed, which some would say is crazy because of the kind of speed you get on a Ducati and climbing the highest mountains in the world, and you putting that together with freedom. Tell us about that, because that's interesting. What is it that gives you that sense of freedom?
So, Carmen, for me, it's about authenticity. I think authenticity is one of the most overused words in the world today. I think we live in a world full of rules and norms and regulations, and some of those are good and some of those are bad. I don't like bad rules. I don't like, for example, when people tell you, this is what a CV must look like, or this is what your LinkedIn profile must look like, or this is the kind of photo you need to put on a LinkedIn profile. Those for me personally, and I hope I'm not offending anybody, but those for me are rules that I just don't appreciate. I think there's good rules in life. Mm-hmm. But freedom for me is you adhere to the good rules. You adhere to the rules of governance in business. In any country, you adhere to the rules of paying tax, the rules of the road. Those are good rules. They're there for the betterment of humanity and society. But what freedom means to me is when I can be a good citizen and abide by good rules, but then I can live my life the way I think I want to live my life, in a way that works for me. That's authenticity. I do not believe in going on a course teaching me how to be authentic. You know, it just, I can't connect those dots. I can't connect the dots of consultants and coaches telling you, oh, you know, here's the 5 steps to authenticity. You know, it just doesn't work for me. Authenticity is intuition. It's your gut feel about what works for you and what doesn't work for you. So freedom for me is when I can live a life of good governance, adhering by the rules and the governance of law, but explore my own capabilities and my capacity and my potential, and test boundaries and push boundaries so that I can see what I'm capable of doing with whatever it is that I was given and that what I you know what I have. I don't believe in the rules of retirement. You know, I will work until the day I drop dead. I don't believe the rules of, you know, age appropriate behavior. I think it's madness. So for me, Carmen, you know, freedom is, you know, when I push the boundaries without being reckless. I enjoy risk. I love risk, right? That's why I climb these massive mountains. But risk management means that I challenge myself in a responsible manner. And that's freedom for me. You know, one of the most famous books in mountaineering is called The Freedom of the Hills. That's freedom. It's when the only boundaries are those that you impose upon yourself. And that is why I climb mountains and, you know, do the things that I do. It's freedom.
Wow. Wonderful. Amazing introduction to why you do what you do. And I think in some sense, all of us are actually looking for exactly that. It's freedom. We work hard to free up our time. We work hard to you know, free up more choices that we have in life, to have those quiet moments. So really amazing introduction into a bit of your why you do what you do. So part of that is pushing, like you said, you push the boundaries. You I heard a wonderful term, I think it could be a book as well, where they talk about rules, which is bullshit rules, which is what you're talking about. So
Absolutely.
You break the bullshit rules and create those rules that are still within the law, but allow you to express your freedom and you move to the edge of your boundaries. So most of your achievements would put you in that realm of boundaryless or unlimited. Yet you're acutely aware of your limits and your weaknesses. So tell me how important it's been for you doing what you do to know exactly what your limits are and your weaknesses. How important is that for us?
So it's a great question, Carmen. You know, one of the things that I struggle with, you know, this notion of, you know, the statement of pursue your dreams. You can only pursue your dreams, in my view and in my experience, if you have a very decent sense of your strengths and your weaknesses. You know, when I was young, I wanted to play, let's say, rugby for the Springboks, but I was never good enough. You know, I just was not good enough to do that. I'm watching IPL cricket last night. I'm in awe of the talent and the skills of those cricket players, right? And you know, I might have had a dream to play cricket, international cricket, and making a career of it. I was never good enough. So the concept of a sense of self-awareness is important. And for me, there's no better place where I found those insights than on mountains. And it was not from success on mountains, it was from failing on mountains. And it was from failing on mountains and not taking accountability for the outcome and blaming other variables for my failure. You know, so I failed the first time when I attempted Aconcagua, which is the highest mountain in South America. And I didn't summit, and I blamed the fact that I got sick. That was my kind of excuse, because mountaineers are really, really good at coming up with excuses on why we don't summit mountains. So I got back to Joburg and I said, no, I didn't summit because I got sick. So the level of self-awareness wasn't there yet. Then I went back the second time to Aconcagua, and again I didn't summit. This time my excuse was, oh, my guide got sick. And again, I haven't learned the importance of standing up, looking at myself in the mirror and realizing that I didn't summit Aconcagua on 2 attempts because the problem was me. I was the problem. And it's amazing for me that once I realized that my failure was also tied to a weakness, and the weakness was blaming external forces when I don't achieve what I set out to achieve. I think it's a fundamental weakness that we have in the world today and in societies. It's always somebody else. It's always something else. Companies don't make money and then it's the economy. People don't summit mountains and it's the weather or the guide or bad food. It's just too many excuses. And when I stopped making excuses and I realized that I was the problem, that was a big breakthrough in my self-awareness. And once I realized that, I went back, and since then I summited Aconcagua twice. I summited Everest. I summited a whole bunch of other mountains. But for me, the breakthrough was, coming back to your question, was when I failed twice on Aconcagua. And when I realized I've got to stop blaming and take accountability. And that is the self-awareness that I had in terms of strengths and weaknesses. I am, I'm very focused, I'm very driven. But what I had to learn, the weakness was, that I had to overcome, was nothing about a physical weakness or a psychological weakness. It was just something that says, listen, stand up and be counted. Take accountability for the outcome. You cannot outsource success to other people. You cannot outsource success in life to other parties. You can't outsource your success to, somebody else, to a mentor or a coach. And I think too many people do that. Ultimately, you're accountable. You're accountable. And for me, that was the big breakthrough, it's one thing to sit in a classroom at university or on a training course at work and get some theoretical model about the benefits of taking accountability and learning the theory about internal and external locus of control. When you climb a mountain and it's you and that mountain, there's only 2 words that matter, and that's no excuses. That for me was the big thing on my breakthrough on self-awareness, which I think is the prerequisite to understanding your strengths and your weaknesses.
Wow. And the prerequisite for absolutely everything in life, no excuses, because same as mountains, everything else, if you have excuses, that's it. It's just a block.
It's just a block. And it leads you on the wrong path. It takes you on a path where it's never you. And I think it's not a good path. I just think it's not a good path.
Absolutely. So tell us a little about the summit on Everest. Because there were 2 experiences, one in 2009, and I would love to know exactly what went on in your mind when you were 400 meters from that summit, and you obviously made a very tough decision to not go on. So I'd like to know that, and then I would like to know what made you go back and what helped you succeed on that second attempt.
So 2009 was my first attempt on Mount Everest. I did all my rotations. You get to just under 8,000 meters. It's called the South Col, so I climbed from the pole side. Started my summit bid and climbed strongly. Really, really felt good. But I was sick. I got sick when I started my expedition about 4 weeks prior to that. The minute I hit the Khumbu region, flying in from Kathmandu, somewhere I ate something and I got a stomach bug that really stayed with me throughout the entire expedition. And I got to a place on the south side. It's called the balcony. It's typically where you switch your oxygen bottles. You use a bottle. You start with a full bottle at the South Col, just under 8,000. You climb to the balcony, and then you switch to a full bottle to take you to the summit. And when I got to the balcony at 8.4, something just happened where I looked at what I still needed to do. I was starting to feel a bit weak, given the fact that I've been kind of a little bit under the weather for about 4 odd weeks. And I realized that I think I had enough power in my legs to get me to the summit. But I wasn't convinced about getting back from the summit. Now, there's apparently statistics that say that the most accidents in mountaineering, in high altitude mountaineering, happen on the way down. And I remember I tapped my guide on his shoulder. And it probably was about 1 o'clock in the morning, maybe 2 o'clock in the morning. It was cold, maybe about minus 20 degrees Celsius, but a glorious day, a glorious morning, great for climbing. I remember I said to my guide, I said to him, I'm going to turn around. I'm going to go back to high camp. And he was quite shocked with my decision. And he said to me, Louis, I'm listening on the radio to other climbers on the mountain. He said to me, I don't think anybody is moving as fast as what you and I are moving. I said to him, Mike, I can get to the summit. I'm not sure I can get down. I said to him, I'm turning around. And it was such an easy decision for me to turn around. And Mike then said to me, my guide, he said, okay, I'll come down with you. I said, there's no need for that. I said, you go and you summit. I said, I've got my Sherpa here, and we'll get down to high camp. We'll get down to base camp, and I'll wait for you at base camp so that we can walk out jointly after the expedition. And it was an easy decision. I had no regrets. And to this day, I've got absolutely no regrets about turning around in 2009. I only had about 450 meters left to climb, about 4.5 hours of climbing at that altitude. But I just wasn't feeling as strong as I wanted to feel. And it was in my legs. And I was feeling strong. And then just suddenly, it felt like I was hitting a brick wall. And I just knew that, listen, this is now time to make really, really crucial decisions. So I turned around.
Can I just,
my guides,
for a moment, because what made it an easy decision? Because there's something processing in your mind to make it an easy decision.
Because it was my decision. I owned the decision.
Okay.
I did not try and seek consensus on the decision. I did not have a conversation with my guide or my Sherpa or any other climbers climbing, about my decision. It was my decision. Nobody else's decision. It's mine. I own the decision.
Okay, the freedom
that's
Tuesday. Mm-hmm.
The freedom to choose. It was an easy decision. So anyway, in 2009, we were filmed by Discovery Channel as part of they had a program on Everest climbers. And I remember I got back to Camp 2, which is 6,500 meters. And I was interviewed by Discovery, and they asked me, will you ever come back to Everest? And I said, no, I won't come back. I said, I achieved 8,400 meters. I said, I gave Everest my best shot. I'm very happy with my performance. I said, I'm done with Everest. And then I got back down to base camp, and I waited for Mike for a day or two. And Mike got back, and on the morning that we walked out, when I left base camp, I was still in a mode that said, I ain't coming back. But then again, within probably 15, 20 minutes, I remember I said to Mike, Mike, I'll see you next year. He said, what do you mean? I said, I'm coming back, Mike. I have an unfulfilled objective. I got back to Joburg, and I trained for a year. I trained like a demon for a year. And I went back in 2010, and I had the same guide and the same Sherpa. And I remember getting on my summit rotation. I remember getting to about, it's above the Geneva, it's called the Geneva Spur, just before Camp 4. And I was on oxygen. My guide was on oxygen. I remember Mike said to me, Louis, you're doing everything right on this mountain. And I was. I was doing everything right. And I summited, you know. And it was just a glorious feeling to summit Mount Everest, partly because of it proved the rightness for me of my decision to have turned around the previous year.
Yes.
It also, for me, proved the rightness of my decision to come back and the sacrifices that went with that. You know, it's massive sacrifices
Absolutely.
to train for a year for a mountain. But also for me, perhaps the most important thing was the concept of having ambition, not a dream, having ambition to do something that's the best that I can do. Now, when I turned around at 8,400 meters, I was a bit sick, but I knew I could do better. And going back in 2010 and summiting Mount Everest proved that to me, that, you know, achieving 8,400 meters is very, very high on Everest. But I knew I could do better. And had I not gone back, it would have been a regret.
Yes.
You know, and the lesson for me is when you have ambition, when you have desire, you cannot stop until you've given that your absolute best. And only you will know in your heart of hearts when you've given your best. When I, in 2009, when I was interviewed by Discovery Channel, and I remember I said to them, I've done my best. But you know what? I had more. I could have done more.
Yes.
I was sick. On that expedition, I've done my best. But for me, as Louis Carstens, a high-altitude mountaineer, I had more to give to the highest mountain in the world. And that was what I did in 2010.
Wow. Awesome. Awesome. I'd love you to take us into your mind as you reach the summit on Everest. Paint the picture for us as to what you saw, what you felt.
So in 20, I was climbing well.
Louis,
And
if you notice that I lost connection.
Yes. Okay.
I'm so sorry. It just went and reconnected itself. So if you could let me go backtrack and start from in 2010, and you were going to take me to the summit.
Right. So in 2010, I got to a point, so I was questioning whether I'm going to summit from when I left high camp, let's say at 8,000 meters, to the South Summit. And you don't know what's going to happen. You might crack up. You might lose the power in your legs. You might just lose it physically. You might lose it mentally. You might say, this is too much. I don't want to do this. So there's lots of stuff happening in your body, your mind, mentally, physically. But once you top out on the South Summit, and once you're on the South Summit, then you see the main summit of Everest for the very first time on your summit bit. You top out on the South Summit, drops a little bit, you see the Hillary step, you see the main summit. You maybe 30, 40 minutes away from summiting Mount Everest. And at that point, I knew I was going to summit Mount Everest today. It was, you know, it was a fait accompli. I was going to summit Mount Everest. And I felt good. I felt strong. It was bitterly cold, but all was good. And my Sherpa, I've got video footage of me where he took video of me at the top of the South Summit. And I've got this massive smile when I took off my oxygen mask. I knew I was going to summit. I stepped, so on the South Summit, you drop down a little bit, you start to climb the Hillary step. I found the Hillary step not to be that difficult. It's a technical obstacle. Everybody, or most people, know about the Hillary step. Today, it's not there anymore after the earthquake in Nepal in 2015, so it's not like it used to be. But I climbed the Hillary step. I didn't find it particularly difficult. You top out on the Hillary step, and it's maybe, you see the summit, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 meters. And I remember I just said to myself, you know, I'm a strong lad. I'm in charge of my emotions. I'm not going to be emotional on this day. I'm going to summit this thing. I'm going to be a real man, you know, and real men don't cry. Real men are not emotional. Boy, oh boy. And I was so strong. And then that last, I don't know, 3-4 meters before I hit the summit. And the summit of 8,000 meter peaks, you've got these Tibetan prayer flags. And it's just beautiful and colorful. And as I got close to these flags, and I knew, you know, I started climbing 12 years ago, and here I am, you know, 2, 3, 4 meters before the highest point on the planet. I just started to cry like a baby. I was just crying. It was 12 years of work, of dedication, of commitment, of failures, of successes. It just culminated in the most unbelievable feeling ever, which is to stand on the top of Mount Everest and you look, you know, 360 views, and everything is just so much lower. You stand on the summit of Mount Everest, and Nuptse, which is, you know, when you're at base camp, you look at Nuptse, it's just under 8,000 meters. It's a giant. You stand on the summit of Mount Everest, you're 848 meters higher than Nuptse, or 850. You look at Nuptse and it looks tiny down there. You stand on the summit of Everest and you see Lhotse, the 4th highest. You see Makalu, the 5th highest. And everything is just so much smaller. And under you, it's lower than you. And as far as you can see, it is just beautiful mountains. It's clear skies. You see the Tibetan side, the China side, you see the Nepal side, and you know that you are so privileged to stand on the summit of Mount Everest. It's just indescribable, Khan. You know, it's a sum total of gratitude for being physically able to do it. Gratitude to my family, you know, my wife, my kids, friends, employer, clients, and just gratitude to stand there and to know that somebody like me, coming from the Free State in South Africa, and the town where I come from, I mean, it's a mining town. We've got mine dumps, and to stand on the summit of Mount Everest and to know that you can't climb higher. And for me, as a high altitude mountaineer, to know you just can't climb higher. There's nothing you can do. You're on top of the world, literally. It's just indescribable. And, you know, it's 10 years ago, 23rd of May, 2010, and it feels like yesterday. I can literally remember. You know, I can remember that entire summer day. I can remember from when I left high camp. I remember the slog up to the balcony. I remember the knife edge ridge between, you know, up to the south summit. I remember why I stood still. I remember why I climbed the Hillary step, and, you know, and people I encountered. But emotion, it was massive for me. It was just as if the dam walls broke, and it's just letting out all the emotions and the self-imposed stress as well, not having made it the previous year. And I knew when I signed up in 2010, I can't go back a third time. I just can't. It's now or never. And then to have achieved it, it's been one of the it's just an amazing day. You know, the photos I took and the beauty of the world. That's another thing. You know, you just see the beauty of this planet. Blue skies, clear skies. It's like everything is there. It was a perfect moment. I was on the summit for maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Perfection. It was just perfect.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for taking us there with you. What does that do for you afterwards? It must leave an imprint. You've explained the imprint. What does it do for you from I can do anything? It must leave a mark in everything you do afterwards and everything you attempt and how you approach life.
It fundamentally changed my orientation towards life. And I remember I got back and I had coffee with the chief executive officer of the firm that I was working at the time. And I remember I said to the CEO, I said to him, you know what, you always keep on telling us, and this really happened. I said to him, you always tell us that this level that I'm working at in this organization, you always tell us that you look at each one of us as, you know, we're on 1 year renewable contracts. You know, I said to him, but you know what? I said, there's nothing that you can do that will make me fear whatever decision you make about my future in this organization. I remember I said to him, I said to him, you can retrench me, you can fire me, you can close my job, you can take everything away. I said to him, I don't fear that. And I did. I have to say, just context, to this day, I'm very good friends with the CEO of that business at the time. And I just have immense respect for him. But I did say to him, I said to him, Leon, you know what? I don't fear anything. And that's been for me, perhaps the biggest thing that Everest did for me is it made me fearless, but not in a reckless way. And, you know, there's very few things that I fear. You know, I fear something bad happening to my kids. Of course, all parents do that. But for the rest, I'm fearless, Carl. I don't fear anything. And not fear in terms of, you know, the way most people will look at fear. You know, for me, the fear about my future. You know, I'm fearless about my future. I feel I can do whatever I want to do. I don't fear losing my job. You know, I believe I can generate income wherever I am, wherever I want to. So Everest made me fearless, and maybe the flip side is Everest just gave me confidence to do in life and with my life whatever I choose to do in life and with my life. Because Everest is a monstrosity of a mountain to climb. It is so hard to climb that mountain. You know, there's some research that says that on your summit day, from high camp to the summit and back, now that it took me, I think, 15 or 17 hours. In those 17 hours, it was 15 hours. I drank 400 milliliters of water. I had one energy gel and one energy bar. That was it for 15 hours.
Wow.
But my body could cope with that. And it's this thing about, you know, they tell us that we burn 15,000 calories on a summer day, not kilojoules, 15,000 calories. So I've exposed my body to a physically such a demanding thing, which is climbing Mount Everest. I've exposed my mind to the risk involved in climbing Mount Everest and the risk of signing up for a mountain. And I knew people die on Mount Everest and I can die on Mount Everest. I remember when I signed up for the second time, I had to fill out a form that's called Body Disposal Election Form.
Oh my God.
And it says, if I die on Mount Everest, the following must happen with my body. And there's three options. One option is leave my body where I die. Option two is drag my body to a crevasse and throw my body in a crevasse. Option three, try and repatriate my body. I chose throw my body in a crevasse, right? That's the mental stuff that you go through when you go and climb Everest, because you sign up for something and, I might not come back from this.
Mm-hmm.
And once your stars are aligned and physically and mentally, and the mountain allows you to summit, I hate the word conquering mountains. I think it's immensely arrogant of people to say, I have conquered a mountain. I don't like that. It's arrogant. But anyway, when you look at all of this stuff and it all came together, and I got back and to this day, it's this thing about being fearless. I can do, and I really believe I'm a man of average talent, but I can do with my life, with this life, whatever I choose to do with this life.
Mm.
It's my boundaries. It's my choices. And that's freedom. Freedom is when I choose. The more choices you have, the more freedom you have.
Mm.
And the more power you have. That's what Everest gave me.
Wow, what a gift you gave yourself.
Yeah.
So we have right now in the globally, no one is spared of this right now, where there's so much fear because of the changing circumstances, the new normal, the business unusual, the economic conditions. There's so much fear and uncertainty and so much concern about the future. Do we have to go and climb mountains to experience the fearlessness that you gifted yourself with? Or is there another way? What have you learned? And I'd like you to answer both, actually. So, because I know you do mountaineering expeditions for leadership. So is that maybe what more of us need to do? Go and climb mountains to experience this fearlessness. And if you don't do that, is there another way that you've learned to teach other people how to develop this confidence?
So, of course, my bias is go and climb mountains.
Yes.
I think that climbing, peaks like Kilimanjaro, which is within the parameters of reasonability, it's really within the abilities of just about most people to go and do Kilimanjaro. And there's few things as beautiful as seeing the sunrise over the plains of Africa when you stand on the summit of Kilimanjaro. And I've been very privileged to have summited Kilimanjaro 3 times. And every time it's just a privilege from start to finish. So I was going to go and climb in Pakistan this year in the Karakoram. And then COVID happened. And there's one of the things that I have learned, which is this thing about you can't dwell on circumstances that you've got no control over. And you don't need to climb a mountain to live your life by that rule. You don't need to go and climb Kilimanjaro or Mount Everest to learn this mantra that you cannot dwell on things that you cannot control. I would have loved to be in Pakistan this year climbing mountains. I've already paid money for that, right? And then COVID happened and Pakistan closed down. We couldn't travel. We couldn't go climbing. South Africa closed down. We couldn't leave the country, traveling internationally. And perhaps one of the biggest abilities that I have is this thing about not dwelling on things that I can't control, and I never overanalyze what happened yesterday. Yesterday is of no material importance to us. today is of some importance and tomorrow is of some importance. I do not look in the rearview mirror, and that has helped me. These two or three rules that I've lived my life by, it's powerful, because it also helps you to live in whatever the moment, the day gives you. So I couldn't go climb a mountain, but I'm here in South Africa, might not go to gym, but I can train and prepare because I'm going to Pakistan next year. So that ability to identify and grasp opportunities when the rest of the world look at whatever that new normal is and just see negativity. I think that is the privileged people who can live their lives by saying, my differentiation is that when the world sees this big dark hole, I see sunlight. I see sunshine. The world sees, and the media frenzy about COVID-19, and yesterday I was watching channel hopping news channels, and it's just COVID. Mm-hmm. Of course, it's a big deal. It's a material problem, right? But I can't control that. I just cannot. I do what I can with wearing my mask and social distancing and all of that stuff. But what are the opportunities that presented themselves in these times? And I can give a list of 10 opportunities for me, which is, I didn't go climb, but all in all, I think, I spent quality time with my family. I didn't travel. I contributed to a lesser carbon footprint in the world, but you don't need to be smart or bright or intelligent or climb mountains just to live your life and saying, I'm not going to be impacted by stuff I cannot control. It's pointless exerting energy, Carmen, on stuff that you cannot control.
Totally.
But what you can control is, what do you do with that? What do you do with these realities? Complaining, moaning, groaning, pointless exercise. It's energy wasted.
Absolutely.
It's energy wasted.
Couldn't agree with you more. So your mindset is as necessary a requirement as the mental strength sounds to me as if it is as important as physical strength in doing what you do. How do you develop that mental strength as you develop the physical strength? What comes first? How have you developed your mental strength?
There is no question that mindset and mental strength, both of those are they're just crucially important to climb the mountains that I climb. I don't think I had the mental strength when I started climbing mountains. And there's two reasons for that. The very first mountain that I climbed was Mont Blanc. And the second one was Kilimanjaro. And I got very lucky climbing those two mountains. I was kind of clueless, didn't really prepare properly, didn't really train properly. And I remember arriving in Chamonix for Mont Blanc, and very proudly I showed my guide my mountaineering boots that I bought in some shop here in Joburg. And I said to him, are these good boots? He said to me, they are only good for disco, So they're not good for climbing a mountain, they're good for disco. Fortunately, I was in Chamonix and I could go and buy proper gear. But I was fundamentally unprepared for my first two mountains, even though I summited. So the concept of success in mountaineering, you've got to unpack that. We don't have time for that today. But just summiting is not always success. It's always about, how did you do the journey? How did you climb? Did you climb well? Were you a good team member? Were you predictable in terms of, I arrived on the mountain and I'm fit and I'm strong and I've got the right gear? That's all part of success. Summit as well. It's also one of the criteria. So, and because I summited those two mountains, and then I went to Aconcagua and I started failing on Aconcagua. And I didn't fail on Aconcagua because of my physical condition. I failed because of my mental condition. I gave up too easily. And, I think there's a fundamental difference between giving up and failing. I think it's okay to fail if you've done your best. It's terrible to give up in life, in anything. And it was failing twice on Aconcagua, and maybe actually giving up twice on Aconcagua, and having the honesty and the decency to acknowledge that I was the problem, and understanding the difference between giving up and failure. That's how I started to build my mental strength, is with that insight. I think world is full of failures. I think you can only live a fulfilling life when you have failed at stuff. I'm so happy that not everything that I tried in life I've succeeded at. I'm so happy with that, because failure taught me much. And what it taught me is the distinction between giving up and failing. And I think it's okay to fail. It's terrible to give up. And mental toughness for me kicked in when I realized that. When I could go to a mountain, my first 8,000 meter peak in 2008, Choi Yu, and I could realize that you climb this 8,000 meter mountain in 10-minute chunks. Again, it's very easy to sit in a classroom and get taught by a trainer about SMART goals, right? We've all been on those training sessions about, this is what a good goal looks like. It's a SMART goal. It's whatever, or the KISS principle, right? Go and climb a big mountain where I don't know if I'm going to summit, but what I need to do now is focus on the next 10 minutes and to do the very best that you can in those 10 minutes. And to also understand that it's all about perfect execution in the moment. It's not about strategy. It's not about vision anymore. It's only about perfect execution in the moment. So these are the things that help me to build my mental strength, also for mountains. And to the point where, I'm getting older, as you can see. So I'm getting older. I'm not as strong as I used to be physically. I'm still decently strong. But my growth in my mental toughness more than compensates for my deterioration in my physical condition as a consequence of age. And there's so much that I do to prepare myself mentally for a mountain. Reading books, making sure that I watched every single video that I can, and YouTube clips, and speaking to people who have summited. And, after every mountain, I write down in my diary, what did I learn on this mountain? And I go and I get those notes out and I write them down and I sit and I think about all of this stuff. And literally, Carmen, for my mountaineering, my mental toughness is such that there's not one single mountain in this world that I believe that I don't believe I can climb. I have got the confidence and the mental toughness and the humility to go and attempt any mountain. I will not shy away from any mountain in this world. I will at least go and attempt any mountain on this planet. And that is a consequence of, 20 years in the mountains, successes, failures, giving up, wrong gear, wrong food, wrong choices, making mistakes, making good mistakes, making mad, stupid mistakes, but always learning, always trying to get better, to be a master of your craft, and to always think about, what is the one thing I can do better on the next expedition? What's the one thing I did badly on the last expedition? And how will my next expedition be better? How will I increase my chances of success? So for me, mental toughness, practically my experience it came from experience. It came from getting out there and physically applying my craft, which is climbing mountains. So, and I plan to climb for many, many, many years to come. And I just know that, my mental toughness, I think, and my mindset is what's going to get me to the summits of these mountains. Of course, I train very hard physically and I prepare wonderfully well. But I think on big mountains, physical conditioning can only get you so far. Because there's a point where it's minus 20, minus 25, your fingers feel frozen, it's bitterly cold, you haven't slept well for 2 or 3 nights, you 3 people in a tent at 8,000 meters, it's miserable. That's when mental toughness kicks in.
Wow. And what you've explained goes for absolutely any, figuratively speaking, any mountain that we need to climb. Be in life, business, whatever it is. Mental toughness, it's the confidence you can do it. It's the humility, which is such a beautiful part of your character. And then always learning, because with the humility comes that understanding that you always need to learn. And when you bring all these amazing qualities together, you can climb any mountain, no matter what it is. And those are the true success secrets that you've learned. Yet you didn't learn it from a textbook. You learned it from going out and physically climbing those mountains, developing that mental strength. You've also taken that into business. So tell us how the mountaineering and everything that you've learned has made you a better business strategist.
So my mountaineering, for me, there's 3 key words. It's vision, ambition, and desire. That for me is encapsulating my mountaineering dogma is that. And then the concept, and there's a bunch of lessons that I learned in mountains. For example, goal setting. After I summited Everest, many people asked me when I continued climbing, they said to me, why do you continue climbing? You have already summited Everest. And I said, because I'm always developing my craft. I'm always striving to be better at what I do in whatever metric I decide to use. And that's the same for me in business. I'm a professional business strategist. Vision, ambition, desire. Current company, market share might be 15%. Let's grow the market share to 20% in 5 years. Or we've made X% profits, let's grow that by inflation plus 3.5% in bad economic times. So the goal setting part for me is that I learned in my mountaineering. It's crucial for me in my work as a business strategist. But perhaps more important than strategy formulation is the execution part. I can sit here at home in my study and make wonderful plans about the next mountain I want to go and climb. And it's very easy to sit here in my study, in my comfortable chair, and making plans to go and climb tough mountains. But then I need to do a few things. I need to start training properly. I need to start eating properly and watch less TV and sleep more. I will need to work on execution. And I think that's perhaps my biggest contribution and learning from mountaineering is strategy in business is about the execution part. It's about having the right metrics and the right targets and then making it happen. Less talking, more doing. And that's the same for me in mountaineering. Less talking, more doing. I cannot begin to tell you, Coleman, how many people have said to me, even when I was doing skydiving, next time you go and skydive, let me know, I'm going to go with you, right? The excuses I had from people when I say, listen, I'm off skydiving tomorrow. You're joining me. No, I need to mow the lawn or wash the dog or whatever the case might be. Just excuses, right? And the same with mountaineering. People would say to me, geez, let me know when next you go and climb ABC or next time you go and hike here at Suikerbos in Heidelberg. I want to go with you. Well, I'm leaving at 5:45 tomorrow morning. Can I come pick you up? It's a Sunday morning. Oh, no, you've got this and that and this and that. Talk is cheap. Talk is cheap. Money buys the whiskey. And I think in organizations, it's so easy to develop these wonderful strategies anchored in great Excel modeling and PowerPoint packs. It's all about the execution and making it happen. And that's the biggest thing I learned in mountaineering. It's get out and climb. Start climbing. Start climbing. Start doing. Start training. Take the first step. It's the same in business. In my work as a strategist. Let's start growing the customer base. Let's drop the price on this product. That's all strategy. Actually doing it, that's part of execution. And for me, maybe that's my single biggest bias. My biggest personality trait is exactly this thing. It's about just start doing something. And I think my life's work as a business strategist is to get this bias for doing into, whether it's me consulting to companies or working full-time in a company. It's let's talk about the metrics and the targets. Let's talk about the strategy, less conversation, less consensus seeking. Of course, those things are all important, but the crux of the matter is let's start executing. Let's start climbing. Let's start doing.
Wow.
And mountains, more than anything else, taught me that. You can sit here and plan to go and climb Kilimanjaro, or you can pay your deposit and start training. It's a fundamental choice. And I know what camp I'm in. It's a choice.
Do it. The Nike slogan. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Where did it all start, Louis? What even inspired you to attempt these 7 summits?
So, so I never had these dreams growing up about climbing mountains. It was just too foreign for me. And then kind of in 1998, I was at a social function, and a client of mine invited me to the social function. And at the social function, I met somebody who then became my best friend. And I remember that day, this person said to me, his biggest dream in life is to go and climb Mont Blanc. So I liked him. I liked this guy. We became best friends. And intuitively, I just said, without thinking, I said, geez, I'll go with you. And then afterwards, I said to him, but what is Mont Blanc? I didn't know what it was. He said to me, no, it's a mountain. I said to him, geez, do I need to train to go and climb Mont Blanc? He said to me, oh, no, you don't need to train. Don't worry about it. He says, we go to Drakensberg, we go and hike up Mount Exhaustus once. Mount Exhaustus. So I actually believed him. Afterwards I knew, and he's a lawyer by training. I don't believe any lawyers anymore, because what this person forgot to tell me is that he's a marathon athlete. He ran the Comrades Marathon. He did the Ironman and he did the Ultraman.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, so eventually we went to Mont Blanc, and I summited Mont Blanc. As I said earlier, I wasn't well prepared. I didn't particularly enjoy it because I wasn't well prepared, but I summited. And I always thought it's going to be a once-off, just a once-off. And then I came back, and then this person said to me, oh, you know what? I also summited Kilimanjaro, so what are you going to do about that? Like male competitiveness, right? So I said, no, okay, sure. You did it. I'm going to do it as well. So I summited Mont Blanc in August of 1998. So in December 1998, I went and I summited Kilimanjaro. I hated it. I did not enjoy that expedition at all. Why? Because I wasn't properly prepared, right? I wasn't properly prepared. And I remember I stood on the summit of Kilimanjaro, I think it was 31 December 1998, and I swore an oath and said, this is it, I'm done. No more mountaineering for me. It's cold, I'm miserable, I don't like this stuff. And then flying back from Tanzania to South Africa, in the airplane was an in-flight magazine. And on the cover of this in-flight magazine was a photograph of Mount Aconcagua, the highest mountain in South America. And I thought, oh, you know what, this mountaineering stuff is not that difficult. I summited Mont Blanc first attempt, I summited Kilimanjaro first attempt. I think I'm going to try Aconcagua now. And then, as I said, I went to Aconcagua the first time, I didn't summit, and that was a shock to my system. And then I went back the second time and I didn't summit, and that was the shock to my system. It was only then when I realized that I am faced with a choice in life. You know, am I going to get myself into gear and go and summit Aconcagua, or am I just going to go and walk away from this? And that was when I was faced with that choice, that life choice about what's the life that I want to lead. And when I went back to Aconcagua and I summited Aconcagua, my third attempt, that for me was really where it all started. I think, you know, meeting somebody and we became best friends and, you know, go and climb Mont Blanc and go and climb Kilimanjaro, that wasn't really the start for me. That was just kind of pastimes, right? But it was when I failed and I was faced with a choice. And I made the choice and I worked towards executing in that choice. And then I started to taste success. That is where it started for me. So my success on mountaineering actually started with failure on mountains.
Wow.
And that's how it started for me.
Wow.
And I do believe that if I, at the time, made different choices, if I just gave up on Aconcagua and I didn't go back, I do believe my life would have turned out very, very differently compared to the way my life did turn out because of the choices that I made at that time.
Sure. Wow, it's all about choice and consequence at the end of the day, eh? And you've chosen wonderful.
And accountability.
Yes, absolutely. We can't forget about that. Well, to choose wisely in spite of the consequences takes accountability. So
yes,
absolutely.
Great.
One more question that takes us into your past. You have extraordinary drive. So it had to have, was there a moment, a person, a situation, a childhood? What sparked this fierce determination you have?
It definitely, for me, goes back to the way I grew up, Carmen. I grew up in a mining community. My father was a mine worker. At that time, mine workers, they just go contract. You know, whenever there's a new contract, they would pack up and they would go. That's what my dad did. You know, work on a certain mine in a certain town. He would find, you know, a better contract. He would pack up. He would go to the next contract. He also had a belief that he didn't want to put his children in boarding schools, in boarding houses. So, which means that, you know, sometimes I attended 3 schools in 1 year, right? And whenever I got to a new school, I always had to catch up because I might get to the school in midway in the second term, for argument's sake. And catch up in those days, I'm giving my age away again. It wasn't like today where you go on the internet or everything is digital. I had to sit and borrow books of other children at school, and I needed to write things down with a pen and a paper. That was what catching up meant, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And sometimes I would just be catching up, and then my dad would find a new contract. You know, I remember once I was in school in Barberton for 4 weeks, and you know, my dad said, I found something better. And yeah, I left. You know, I had to go with him. So I think that the way I lived, especially my early childhood, primary school years, where it was all about continuous adaptation. You know, I had to adapt. We would live in this mining town, then we go to that mining town, then we go to another province in a mining town. And you get to the new school, and I had to pass. You know, I couldn't say I'm failing at school because my dad went and he found a better contract. I had to pass. Me, Louis, I had to pass. What that meant was I needed to catch up the work that I missed because I wasn't in the school when the school year started. And I think I think that was probably it for me. I am a driven person. I really am driven. And it was that thing of, I will pass school, I will pass the grade, I will not fail, even though I came into the school mid-year through the school year, or sometimes in the third term of the school year. I just had to make it happen. I had to pass. My parents made the decisions that the children always, go with them from town to town. Can't say to my dad, listen, I want to be in one school and therefore you need to stay in one job. It worked a little bit differently with my dad. But I guess that's where it's coming from, Carmen. It's just at a very young age. I was forced with changing circumstances, and the choice was to adapt to that. Maybe it's inbred. I don't know if it's a personality trait, but I think there's a big part of my drive comes from that at a very young age, I had to adapt. I had to continuously adapt to changing circumstances. I was in, countless schools. I think I was in something like 14 primary schools. I'm not sure. I tried to count one day. I couldn't remember. I remember I was in 3 secondary schools, 3 high schools, that I recall. But it forced me to adapt. I always had to adapt. And maybe that's why I have the ability to adapt to circumstances in this world we live in today. I just adapt. I couldn't control the environment and the circumstances of attending many schools. That was a card that I was dealt with in life. Those to my parents, And COVID-19 today is the card we've been dealt with. And you just have to play the card game. You have to bat the ball that you are being bowled with. So I guess that's where it's coming from for me, is I was forced to adapt. I was forced to be flexible and just catch up with schoolwork. Make sure I get with the program at school. And I think that's where maybe my sense of responsibility also comes from.
Yes.
And this just a flexibility that, to catch up on the schoolwork, it's not the teacher's job or my dad's job or my mother's job. It's mine. It's mine.
Wow. So adaptability and accountability, two incredible treasures you've brought with you right through your life. And right now where we are, I can't think of anything more important to succeed and move forward, to thrive in this economic climate. We have to adapt. We have to take accountability. So you're right. You're totally relevant and right there with all the whole kit that you need to not survive but thrive this. What would you say, all those incredible still moments on top of the world, what would you say that has taught you about what truly matters in life?
The fact of the matter is that for most of us as Western climbers, we will never get to the top of these mountains if it wasn't for the incredible Sherpas of Nepal. And I've been to Nepal 7 times on mountaineering expeditions. And I've come to know the Sherpa people of Nepal very well. And they're truly phenomenal mountain climbers. There's been lots of scientific studies done about the natural ability of the Sherpas. They're born at 4,000 meters, 4,500 meters. So just physiologically, they are, they're in different league. But there's something else that they have, and that's what I think that really matters, and that's kindness. I have not found in all my travels, I've climbed on all 7 continents, of course, including Antarctica. But there's something about the Sherpas, and you hike to Everest Base Camp, and my Sherpa that summited Everest and Joy you with me. And he lives in a little village in Nepal on the way to Everest from Lukla called Pangbushe. And, you go to his very modest 1-room house, not 1-bedroom house, one-room house, and he has made you some Sherpa, it's called Sherpa tea. And his wife comes out, and they have gone and they bought some biscuits for you. Yeah. It's just kindness beyond all comprehension. And when I summited Mount Everest and I stood with my Sherpa, his name is Dasona, on top of that mountain, and I knew that he was as pleased for me to have summited as I was. And getting back down the mountain, talking to Dasona, and he has summited at that time Mount Everest. It was his 10th summit of Mount Everest, the summit with me. And I just look at this person and I thought, geez, you've summited Mount Everest 10 times and you never talk about it. You never talk about your achievements. You're too humble. So there's two things for me that really, really matter in life. And it's something that, it's the most important things that my mountaineering taught me is kindness and humility. It's kindness and humility. And that's what I found in the Sherpas in Nepal. I found them, my experience, is the kindest, gentlest, most modest, most humble people. And the day will come where physically I just can't go and climb these mountains anymore. The day will come. But what mountains gave me, the most important thing, is to realize that what truly matters in my experience, and that's what I try and teach my kids on a daily basis, and that for me will be the biggest legacy I can leave and the way I really want to be remembered. People always talk, what do you want on your tombstone? For me, it's kindness and humility. That's it. It's kindness and humility. And I'm just so privileged to have almost stumbled onto this sport called mountaineering, because that's the most important stuff that I've learned from climbing mountains in 20 years. It's kindness and humility.
Wow. Thank you. And that ties in so wonderfully with the ethos of this podcast and show, which is bringing humanity back to business. That we can overcome all the barriers, all the mountains we experience when that's exactly it, when we tap into that humanitas, which is kindness, compassion, caring, and having the humility to know that we can't actually do it together. I mean, we can't do it alone. We can only do it together.
Yes.
And we can scale any mountain, no matter whether that be literal or figuratively, when we are kind and bring this humanity back, which is our deeply human principles, and understand that together we can do this. Collaboratively, we can do this. We can achieve anything that gets put in our way. But it's about moving that arrogance away, moving the ego out of the way, and understanding together is truly our strength. Louis, thank you. You silenced me in that moment there with your kindness and humility. Thank you for such a beautiful, I feel like I've been on the top of the mountain and just taking in all these magnificent insights and sights that you've shared through your experience. You're an incredible example of what's possible through physical strength, and most importantly, that mental strength and what sounds like is actually a deep spiritual strength that comes through your passion and your humility and your humanitas. So thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. And whatever your future awaits, I know it's going to be exciting, and I look forward to seeing whatever other mountains you choose to climb.